Yep, all good. Okay, thank you, Nick. So just to let you know, tonight we're going to start the build of the Wildthing 60. Nick Chitty has kindly agreed to help me out, so he'll be answering your questions in the chat so that I can just concentrate on the build. The first thing I want to cover is actually something about coloured tape. So I've got 2 rolls of coloured tape. This is the sort of tape that we supply in the kits, and this is the tape that you're going to get everywhere else, which is polypropylene tape. I did cover this briefly the other night, but the tape we supply has got an opaque adhesive. Now this will stop the UV light coming through and affecting the glass weave tape, making that perish prematurely. Now if I show you the polypropylene tape, which is the coloured tape you'll buy pretty much everywhere else, hopefully you'll be able to see that that's pretty much see-through. So that's just something I wanted to kind of demonstrate the difference between our tape and the tape that you're going to buy on eBay or on Amazon, or generally in a model shop or somewhere like that. It's completely different. This one's got an opaque adhesive and completely blocks UV light, whereas this one you can probably see my hand through it. Where are we going? Down there somewhere. Hopefully should be able to see that one of them you can see through, one of them you can't. Okay, right, that covered. Let's get on with this build. So before I started tonight, I prepped my wings cores. So if you was watching last night, you'll know that when you get these, they come with a blunt leading edge. So today, just before I started, I gave these a good sand, and I rounded off the leading edge of the wing. When you sand these, you'll notice when you get these that they're quite rough, and what that is when they're cut with a hot wire, the hot wire melts through the individual beads, and the outside shell of the bead gets very hard, and the inside of the bead melts back slightly, so you get a little concave in each of the beads. So it's a good idea when you get these to give them a good clean up and just go over the whole surface with some 80 grit sandpaper in the block that we supply, and the texture that you're looking for is for it to kind of feel a little bit like velvet. It should become really nice and soft to the touch. When you get that feeling, you'll know that you've got a really, really good smooth surface for the tape to stick to. Because if you leave them rough and you leave those concaves in the beads, the tape's only sticking to the edges of each individual bead. So yeah, give them a good clean up, give them a nice sand, and then hoover them all off so that there's no dust left on the surface, and you'll find that the tape sticks to them much better. Alright, so we've got 2 wing cores, and the first thing we're going to do is on the bottom surface, so you can see the spar slots. We're going to tape from the trailing edge towards the leading edge. Okay, so I've got my glass weave tape, and I've got a nice sharp scalpel here. Just going to get rid of the first bit of the tape because it's got a bit of paper stuck to it, and then what we're going to do is roll the tape out, and we're going to go just to the edge of the root and right the way to the tip. But we're going to leave an overhang of about 1/3 of the tape at the back of the trailing edge. And the reason we do that is so that we can wrap it all the way around the trailing edge. Okay. And then at the end, at the tip, we're just going to leave a little bit of an overhang there as well, so that we can fold it over. So that's what you're aiming for. you're aiming for a bit of an overhang at the back and a little bit of an overhang at the tip. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to cut a little square out here. I'm going to cut that little square out so that I can now fold this end in, and using the table I'm going to fold that over, give it a rub so it's nice and well stuck. And then just fold that again over the top surface. Okay, so now we've got a nice solid trailing edge. I'm going to switch to the bottom core. And I'm going to continue to tape from the back to the front of the wing with the glass weave tape. And what we're going to do is we're going to overlap the tape by about 2 or 3 mil on each join. So again, we're leaving a little bit of an overhang at the tip. Just going to smooth that down lightly. Try and get rid of any creases as you go. And then at the root, I'm going to slice the tape off. So again, smoothing the tape out as we go. You'll also notice that the tips, I've rounded the tip off when I've sanded the leading edges, and it just helps the tape go round the edge. And I always overhang the edges so that when I do the bottom surface as well, you get a nice overlap on the tips, and that just holds all the tape nice and firm. And we trim off at the root so that there's no overhang either way on the root of the wing. Okay, so continuing on. It's a really good idea to have a really nice sharp either surgical blade or Stanley knife. I've got a Stanley knife here with a nice fresh blade as well. Just so you can cut through the tape easily. You can cut it with scissors, but the glue tends to stick on the scissors, and after a couple of cuts you'll find that scissors tend to get a little bit sticky and it gets harder to cut. So I'm just going to show you, as we go along the tip, you can see that the wing is just starting to curve now. So what I'm going to do to get around the curves is just put a couple of slices in the tape. And that's just going to help us get around those curves on the tips. Okay, so you can see that's coming up nice and smooth. So nice firm pressure across the tape. And the reason that we're doing this in the wing core is so that as we apply the tape, we don't want the wing to get curved, or we don't want the wing to be out of shape when we're applying the tape, because any sort of twist or any sort of bend that you introduce while you're covering is going to stay there once it's fully taped, because the tape really does add a hell of a lot of strength. Okay, so again, just trim up at the tips. So I've done smaller cuts this time at the tip because the curve is getting tighter around the tip. So you can see it's all nice and tidy on the tip. We've got a little bit of overlap on the bottom. I'm not worried about that at all. The main thing is to get the tips covered nicely and that the tape is smooth right the way across the wing. Okay, so now we get to the leading edge. You've got a few options here, so I'm just going to put that compound curve around. You do have the option to wrap this round the leading edge and cut it off, but what I tend to do is just fold it around and I'll leave that triangle piece there. You're going to see that repeated along the leading edge of the wing as I carry on. Okay, so we're looking good. As you get closer to the leading edge, or close to the nose of the plane, you're going to notice the tape runs are going to get shorter and shorter. But just continue with that method. Smoothing everything out as you go. And then when you get to this part here, where the notch is for the fuselage, we're just going to cut that section out. Sorry, not going to cut that section out. We're going to cut a 45 degree so we put a 45 degree slice in there so that we can just fold that tape in. And there's a tiny little bit of the leading edge left there, which we're just going to cut a small piece of tape to cover. Okay, so you can see that we've got the top surface of the wing now. That's a good time to give everything a good rub down. And you'll notice when you rub hard on the tape, I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but you can actually see the tape get darker the more pressure you put on it, and that's the tape sticking to the foam. So you can see where I don't know if you can see that, but where I put pressure on it, there's dark spots where it's stuck to the tape. So we kind of want to get that effect right the way across the wing. So I'm just going to give that a real good rub. You can do this with a credit card, or if you want to use a cloth or something like that, just to help rub it down. Okay, that's good. I'm happy with that. So we've got a nice smooth covering and overlaps of about 2 or 3 mil, and they're all nice and straight. That's already started to add a lot of strength to the wing. We're going to carry on now and cover the bottom side. So the same process, we're going to overlap at the tip. And we're leaving the root clear. So it's a good idea to work from the centre out when you're rubbing the tape down. It just helps push all of the creases out to the edges, and then you can just push them off the edge. The same process, we're going to put some slits in the tape at the end so that we can work around the compound curves. Okay, now because we're coming onto the top surface of the wing, and this is not going to get, the top surface of the wing isn't going to get a second layer of tape, I'm actually going to cut this off. I'm going to cut it flush with the leading edge. So what I tend to do is just pick it up and run my knife across, sliding it across the actual wing, because that acts as my straight edge when I'm slicing the tape off. So now I can just fold that round, and the leading edge has got a double layer of tape around it now, but there's a nice straight line going along the leading edge. So I'm going to repeat that process now along the leading edge. Okay, it's the same process. I'm going to fold the tape back, use the wing as a straight edge, just slice through the tape. Providing your blade's nice and sharp, you should only have to run the tip through the tape for it to cut through. That's the advantage of having a really nice, fresh, sharp blade over something that's a little bit dull, and it's going to sort of pull the glass strands, and that, you know, you'll get wrinkles in your tape if you do that. Okay, so one more strip. Okay, so my blade's starting to get a little bit of glue stuck on it already. It's starting to get sticky. Let's just clean it off a little bit. Okay, so we've got the same thing again. We've got the overhang in the notch where the fuselage goes. We're just going to slice through that at 45 degrees. Bring this up. And we've also got a little bit of a round over on the leading edge. So what I'm going to do with that is slice up through it so that we've got a small piece here, and I'm going to fold that in first. so that the larger piece, when I fold that round, holds the small piece in place. And that's all just wrapped in nice and neatly now. And this is actually providing a surface for the double-sided tape we're going to use to fix the wing to the fuselage later on. Right, so that wing is now covered in glass weave tape, and you can see already it's added a huge amount of strength to the wing. I'm not going to repeat the process with the other wing now for the build, because I kind of feel that's just wasting your time a little bit. You've seen me cover one wing, I don't need to do that again. What I'm going to do now is cover the fuselage with glass weave tape, and I'll do the other wing off camera tomorrow, so that tomorrow evening we can carry on with covering with the coloured tape and setting up the servos and adding the elevons and stuff. Okay, so let's just pop that away. I'm going to leave that in the wing cores. And we'll pop that to one side. And let's start to have a look at the fuselage. Okay, so again, the fuselage, when we supply you with the fuselages, we give them to you already with the edges sanded. Now, check them over, because you might find there's little bobbles of EPP from the hot wire cutting process still on there. And if you feel you need to sand them anymore, again, just use the 80 grit sandpaper on the sanding block that we provide you, and just give the edges a nice little rub round, make everything nice and smooth. But the fuselage should be pretty much good to go. Alright, so the fuselage is one of the things most people struggle with. The wing is fairly easy to cover. The fuselage has a lot of compound curves, and this is the part where people think, how am I going to do that? So I'm going to show you the way I do it, which I think is probably one of the simplest and gives you a really, really good result. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to notice is we've got the bit of masking tape on the hatch, and that is there just so you can find the hatch, because if we don't put the bit of masking tape on, there's a very, very fine line there, and you probably won't even notice it there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a piece of masking tape on during the taping process, and then I will cut that out as we go, so you'll see what I'm going to do with that. Alright, so let's start with the side of the fuselage. Now the first thing I'm going to do is take a full length of tape, and I'm going to overhang the nose and the tail of the fuselage. And we'll cut that off long at both ends. Okay, so we're going to smooth that on the fuselage now, because it's a nice flat side on the fuselage. So what you're going to get is this: you've got a flappy bit at that end and a bit flappy that end. But what we're looking for is the wing seat, is the most important part here. So we've got an overhang which goes all the way along the wing seat, and what we want to do is slice up right at the end where the wing meets the fuselage, and then every 10 or 15 mil we're going to put another slice. As you get closer to the tail, there's more of a curve in the wing seat, so just make your slices a little bit closer together. And carry on putting the little slices in all the way to the tail, with the last one on where the angle meets. So you want to put a slice right in that piece there. Okay, so once you've done that, you'll be able to go through these one by one and fold them over the wing seat. And again, the reason we're covering the wing seat is because we want to provide a bed for the double-sided tape that we're going to use to fix it to the wings later on. And it wants to be as neat and tidy as possible to get the best possible surface You can see I've not quite covered the seat there, whereas really I could have done with a little bit more overlap. So on the other side I'm going to try and get a little bit more overlap on that wing seat. Alright, so coming down to the end, I'm going to slice down again so that we can just fold this piece in. And then for the tail end, I'm going to fold this whole piece over. So you can see I've taken completely over the end of the fuselage. And I'm going to repeat the process that we did on the wing. I'm going to put a slot 45 degrees where the joint is in the fuselage so that we can fold that in. Now we're going to tape over this again later, but this is just a way to get everything all nice and neat and tidy on the ends of the fuselage. And this piece here, I'm going to cut off. So I'm going to fold it back on itself and just slice through it. So you can see I've started to cover the back end of the fuselage, but I've cut it off so it's neat and tidy, but it's just tidying up these ends here without any wrinkles or anything like that. Now we come back to the front of the fuselage and we're going to repeat the same process here where there's compound curves. I'm just going to put some slices in the tape and start to fold those in. So I'm coming all the way around the front of the fuselage with the tape, and I'm just going to keep putting vertical slices in the tape so that I can fold it over the nose. That's the easiest way to get a tidy nose section. You want to pull these as tight as possible when you're sticking them together and try and stop the tape from creasing. So you can see I'm getting a nice tidy finish on the nose where I've sliced the tape, and I'm just pulling it round and gradually pushing it down bit by bit onto the fuselage. And it really is worth taking your time with this bit, because let's face it, the nose of the aircraft is the bit that's going to hit the ground the most. Okay, so let's just have a quick look. Have we got any messages from anybody? How's things going, Nick? Can you just give me a heads up how things are going your end? Okay, so you should be able to see now that that's really nice and neat and tidy around the nose of the aircraft. Hopefully you can see that okay. Just have a quick slurp of my tea here. Tea again, by the way. Alright, good. So just have a quick look, just check in with Nick. So Nick says everything's going well, so that's good. Good. Right, I'm going to carry on then. Let's do the other side of this fuselage. So again, we're going to overhang the back end of the fuselage. I'm going to try and get a little bit more tape over the wing seat this time. So I'm going to bring it up a little bit. And once again, we're leaving an overhang on the nose. Now you can see here, I've just creased the end of my tape there, and there's little tiny strands of glass weave poking out, and that's because I'm getting glue on the end of my blade. So I just need to clean the glue off again. And what I'm going to do is actually trim that again, because I really don't like those strands sticking out. They can get in the way and they stick to the tape. And they get gummed up with glue, and you tend to get basically a little bit of snot left on the tape. It's not a major problem, but it just annoys me. Alright, okay, so we'll leave that hanging again. And we'll smooth the tape out along the flat side and repeat the process down the wing seat, doing vertical slices. And again, the last one needs to be right on the angle on the end of the fuselage. Okay, so let's fold those in. Yeah, that's a much better result this time. The tape's actually coming right the way over the wing seat and folding down onto the inside. So that's what you're aiming for when you're covering your fuselage. Same thing again, we've got the whole piece left at the end. We've got a little bit of a curve there, I'm just going to slice it out. Fold the whole thing over. Do the 45-degree cut. And tape that in. Okay, so we've got a little bit sticking up here. Again, just a quick cut. And fold those in. And the little bit that we've got remaining here, we're going to slice off. So you can see that nice tidy wing seat, and the tape's gone all the way over and into the inside of the fuselage. Give that a good rub down, make sure everything's all down nice and smooth. And then come back to the front and repeat the process of slicing the tape so that we can get around the compound curves. Okay, good. And when you're doing this, it's always a good idea to work from the sort of inside of the tape towards the end, because if you start this end and work back this way, you can find that you'll end up with creases in the tape because you haven't been able to pull the tape tight enough here to get around the curve. So always work from the middle towards the end of the tape and really try and pull it as much as you can around that curve to keep it nice and tight. And if you do think you're going to get a crease, wherever the crease is going to be, just run the knife through it again, just to give yourself, you know, just so that you can pull that crease out of it. Okay, so that's the sort of what we're aiming for around the nose of the fuselage. Is it all nice and tidy, all pulled in tight, no creasing. There's lots of overlaps. There's overlaps, you know, where every slice is, because you're coming around those compound curves and sealing all of those joints. Okay, so let's get on with this. So what we're going to do now is the foredeck, and how I do that is I run 2 pieces of tape. So let's start with the first one. And just make sure I've got enough to come over the edge and wrap over the tape down the side of the fuselage. So, and I'm also going to leave enough so I can come down this back edge here. But instead of leaving a big overlap at the front this time, I'm actually going to cut it off flush. Okay, so that's the nose. So I've cut it off flush this time, but I've left the overhang so that I can come back down on the wing seat. Alright, so let's deal with the wing seat first. I'm going to fold that straight down. And I'm just gently working it in with my thumb. So it's nice and well taped down here. Now you've still got the overlaps and you've still got these bits. So let's work through those from back to front. So the first thing we're going to do is slice through this bit here, and we'll just fold that in. And then we're going to come up to the top of the fuselage. Now, I don't want to come right into this bit here because there's a compound curve as the fuselage comes over to the top of the fuselage. So I'm actually going to cut it off where the compound curve finishes, just there. So now I've got that flap, I can fold that in, and you can see that's before the compound curve starts. Hopefully you can see that. You might not be able to see it on the camera. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up about the size of the compound curve, so it's a roughly 10 millimeters, and do another slice. And I'm going to extend that slice down well past the compound curve and just fold that bit of tape back for now. And this piece of tape here, I'm going to fold around the compound curve, and then we'll seal it in. So I've just taped over the edge of that compound curve there. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so now we go back to the process of doing vertical slices. Now on the top of the foredeck, you can leave quite big chunks of tape. But as you move forwards and you start to get into the curve of the foredeck on the fuselage, you're going to start to want to reduce the width of your slices. so that you can make sure that you get a real nice neat job of those compound curves. And again, I find it's always best to work away from you with the knife rather than towards yourself, because you can just flick the knife through the tape and you can do it fast and it gets a nice accurate cut. So I'm taking my time a little bit now. Just want to make sure I get this as neat and tidy as possible. And we're starting to get really thin bits of tape now, so you can see my slices are starting to get smaller and smaller. Okay, so there we go. That's one half of the foredeck done. Let's repeat that on the other side. Again, we're not aligning this with the centre of the fuselage. We're aligning this to make sure we've got enough tape to wrap over the edge of the fuselage and meet the tape the other side. Going to cut the tape off flush with the nose again. And just make sure it's all well stuck down on the flat surface before we continue. And once again, we're going to go down into the wing seat first, making sure that's all nice and neat and tidy. This part here and the wing seat that run down the fuselage is one of the most important parts to keep tidy, because that will determine how well your fuselage is going to stick to your wing. This is cut exactly the same profile as the underside of the wing, and this will fit into the notch in your wing. So if this is all nice and smooth, when you apply the double-sided tape through here and through here, and you eventually stick it to the wings, you're going to find that's a really, really tight bond. But if you don't get this quite right, and this is all wrinkly through here, that joint is not going to be as strong. So it's really worth taking your time to make sure this part of the fuselage is nice and smooth. Okay, so again, before the compound curve, we're just going to fold that tab in. And then coming really deep up into the tape to make sure that we've got that compound curve completely taped in. Okay, so again, taping over that curve. Then back to the vertical slices. My tape tabs are getting shorter and shorter again, because there's more severe curves you get towards the nose. Okay, so that's the foredeck done. What you'll notice is around the nose, where we've got all of these tiny little overlaps, we're actually building up quite a substantial amount of tape. By the time you finish, the nose is going to have around 4 layers of tape on it, glass weave tape. That's going to make that really, really strong for impacts. One of the reasons these are so strong is the way they're made. Obviously, we've got the ply reinforcement in the fuselage, but also the way they're taped and glued together really makes this one of the strongest EPP flying wings on the market. And even flying these into the ground nose first at full speed, if you do a good tape job, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to break the fuselage. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, because occasionally it does. It comes in at an angle and you might break across the nose, across the wing seat, but it's unlikely. It doesn't happen very often. Okay, so we've now got to repeat that process on the underside of the fuselage, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. Just going to pull a little bit sticking up there, pull that out. We're going to repeat the same process, just leaving enough tape to fold over the edges and meet the tape to make a join on this side here. And I'm going to leave the masking tape tab, and I'm going to cut that out afterwards so that I can get access to the hatch. Okay, so we're leaving an overlap at the tail. And the same as we did with the foredeck, I'm going to cut that off level with the nose at the front. And then starting in the middle, I'm going to work my way to the back first and then come back towards the front. Slicing through, cutting my tape tabs. Pulling them tight as we stick them down. Okay, and when we get to the end, we're going to repeat the process we did before, and we're going to cut all the way up where the join is, where the angle is, and we're going to fold that tab in. So I'm going to fold this one all the way back, and I'm going to fold this one in, and now I need to trim that piece off because the other piece of tape is going to come up over that section. You need to be a little bit careful, mind your fingers. And then this piece here, we're going to fold up and do the 45 cut that we did before. And fold those pieces in. So now this tail end section here is now starting to get really strong as well, because that's had 2 layers of tape all over the tail section. Alright, now we're going to work our way to the front. pulling the tabs tight one at a time. Okay, so I'm looking at my feed, and is everything still alright, Nick? Are we still live? Let's just have a look. Okay, so just checking the feed. I've just seen John Marchant's comment. John Marchant, I put yours in the post today, so you should receive yours within the next sort of 48 hours. Glad this is useful to you. I'm sure you'll be watching it back when you build yours. Okay, good. So we've now got one top finished, one side finished. We're now going to do the final bottom piece and finish this side off as well. So same process again, we're going to go down through the middle first, make sure it's all smooth and straight. And then working from the middle towards the back. Again, where we've got the corner, just going to slice through the tape, repeat the process we did before, fold that piece in. We're lucky this time it's finished flush. Okay, and then this piece folds up around the tail, and we do the 45 cut. And just fold those bits in. Working from the middle towards the front now. And again, those tabs getting smaller and smaller as we get towards the front, just to make sure we can get right around those compound curves. Okay, good. So this is really strong now. Once this has had a layer of tape, it puts some serious strength into this fuselage. You can see it's rock hard. Okay, sorry about the noise. Okay, right, now the reason I left the piece of masking tape in here is because we need to know where the hatch is to cut the hatch back out, because I like to do the hatch as part of the initial taping. So what I'm going to do, where the masking tape is, I'm just going to take a blade and run round it. And then where the masking tape finishes, I'm going to cut out to the wooden fuselage reinforcement. You'll be able to see that through the tape. You'll also be able to feel it because it's rock hard. And when you pull that up, you now give that just a little tug. If you can see where I'm tugging that, you can see that it's lifting the tape. So where it's lifting the tape now, just slice where the plywood reinforcement is, slice down the tape. And that will reveal your hatch. There we go. So that's now all nicely taped, nicely sealed in there. And we can just patch this bit up with a little bit of glass weave tape. And as you can see, the inside of the fuselage, when we manufacture the fuselages, we actually tape around the inside of the fuselage with glass weave tape. So that adds the strength all the way through the fuselage of the glass weave tape. That tape wraps all the way around through the battery hatch and comes down and wraps around the flap for the hatch. So this is now a double taped hatch. It's got glass weave tape on either side, and that joint there is going to be incredibly strong and last for years. Doesn't matter how many times you open and close it, that is going to be a really, really strong, solid joint. And all you really need to do to keep the hatch closed is either put a little tiny bit of double-sided tape in there, or when you close your hatch, just have a little bit of tape handy so that you can tape across the end of the hatch. And that just gives you, a nice joint and keeps the hatch closed. What I also do is I leave this piece of glass weave tape and masking tape, I leave it on there because I like to have something to pull. I like to have something to grab hold of and pull the hatch open. So what I normally do is put my double-sided tape on the inside of this so that when it closes I can just rub it down. Alright, so let's just patch up that little hole inside. So I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm just going to cut it to the width of the hatch. I'm going to drop the end of it inside the hatch and just tape back there, and now that's all nicely covered. Then we've got a nice, neat, tidy hatch. All the tape's all nice and neat and tidy. And that's now ready to fix to the wings when the wings are finished. The only other thing we might want to do is just slice the little bit of tape for the hole where the servo leads go through. So I don't know how well you can see that there, but another thing that we do when we manufacture these is we cut a hole that goes all the way through here into the forward hatch, so that when you join the wings to the fuselage, you'll have two servo leads. You just push your plugs through this little hatch here and they'll join straight up with your receiver inside the hatch. Okay, good. Well, I think that's probably enough of the build for tonight. What we'll do tomorrow night is my wings will be finished. I'll have finished glass weave taping my wings tomorrow night. When I come on tomorrow night, everything will all be finished. The glass weave taping will all be finished, and we're going to assemble the model. So we'll be fixing the wings together, joining the wings together. We'll then set the servos. So the servos need to be neutralised, plugged into your receiver just so they're centred. We'll need to take the elevons on. We'll need to put the servo horns on the elevons, connect the push rods to make sure everything's straight, so that we've got nice centred servos and that we know we're going to get the right amount of throw on our push rods. And then once all the electronics are set up, we'll then assemble the actual fuselage to the wings so that we've got a model. We'll then move on to covering it with the glass weave tape, the coloured tape, to give it a nice colour and a nice pattern. And we'll probably add some fancy graphics or something like that to it while we're doing the covering. Okay, so if anyone's got any questions, I will hang on for another 10 or 15 minutes just to answer those. And yeah, so fire away. I'll grab the laptop. Okay, let's just move the camera so you can see me. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top and work my way down these questions. Steve Tillotson has said, what is the best plane in your range for a starter? I'd highly recommend the Wildthing 46 for your first model from our range. It's the most versatile one we do. Although the Wildthing 60 is larger and it flies in lighter lift, what you'll find with the 46 on reduced throws, it's very, very easy to fly. It's very, very stable. It doesn't tip stall. It hasn't got any funny characteristics. It's really, you point it where you want it to go and that's where it goes. So I'd highly recommend the Wildthing 46 for your first model from our range. Unless you fly on slopes where there's marginal lift most of the time, and then I'd recommend the 60, because it will stay up in a lot lighter lift. The Wildthing 46 is the one that you'll see the most on the slopes. It's by far our most popular model. And over the years, I mean, Alan was producing these models for 17 years before I took over. I should imagine out there in the UK and around the world, there's thousands and thousands of Wildthing 46s out there, and they are probably our most, how would you say it? That's definitely the one I'd recommend as a first model from our range, without a doubt. It's the most versatile and the most fun, because if you increase the throws, it will do all the manoeuvres you want it to do. Rolls, flat spins, everything. It's a fantastic model. Okay. Nick Reeves just popped on. It says, Ewan says hi, the Ginger Ninja, and He's currently building his stiffy. Okay, so we talked about that the other night. That's one of my designs, which is coming out under the Itchy Sons RC brand, and that is an FPV racing wing. But we're going to skip over that tonight because we're concentrating on the 60. Okay, so what else have we got here? Okay, I might have been a little bit of trouble reading the other messages at the moment. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, right. Okay, so Nick Cheek says, I love my mini Wildthing. It's super nippy for combat. Yeah, the Wildthing 13, the mini Wildthing, incredible roll rate. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Okay, Anthony Bussey, still got my thing with an OS 15. Anthony, could you let us know how old that thing is? How long have you had it? Because I should imagine that's got to be double figures. Okay. Greg Wilson, does tape come in the kit? Yes, we supply one roll of glass sleeve tape, and this is the 3M quality Scotch brand tape. It's the best quality glass sleeve tape you can get on the market. It is included in the price of the kit, and we also supply one roll of coloured tape as part of the kit, and the glue to join the wings together. We include all of the hardware, push rods, clevises, control horns, the elevons, the fin, basically everything you need except the servos, the battery and the receiver is included in the kit. So yeah, we think they're one of the best value for money kits on the market because we don't ask you to buy a covering kit as an extra. You get it included in the kit. You can buy extra coloured tape if you want to do a nice pattern, but we supply at least, we supply one roll of coloured weave and one roll of glass weave tape in the kit as part of the price. So it's really good value for money. Okay, coming down. Guy from Belgium, hello, and I am enjoying my tea, thank you very much. Okay, any more questions? It's great, everybody comes on and says hello, so it's really nice. Oh, I've lost it again. Okay, somebody said what size Wildthing is best for combat. Again, I'm going to recommend the Wildthing 46 purely for its manoeuvrability. The Wildthing 60 is going to stay up in light lift. It's good for combat because it's really hard to get out of the air because when you hit it, everything just tends to bounce off it. It's really stable. But for fun, just for going out there and having fun, I recommend the Wildthing 46. Okay, so Nathan Knight said, thoughts on laminating film like we use on FPV wings. Alright, so laminating film is great, don't get me wrong. In the right application, it's the right thing for the job. So if you're building a racing wing and you want to keep the weight down, laminating film is the way to go. If you're building a combat model, which let's face it, that's what this is, Laminating film is not going to give you the strength that the glass sleeve tape and the vinyl tape is going to give you. You will break something if you just use laminating film on these and use it for combat. If you want to build it light and you're not going to combat it, then laminating film is a great option. But for the abuse that we give these models, and we do combat these hard, and we do really stupid stuff like try and do limbo through aluminium gates and touch and goes on the tops of trees and all of the crazy stuff that we do with these models. You want to cover them in glass sleeve tape and vinyl tape, because then rather than it lasting you a season, maybe two, there's Wildthing 60s and Wildthing 46s out there that have been out there for 15 years and they fly just as well as they did when they were built, and I can absolutely guarantee they've had a hard life. But this is by far the strongest method for covering these models, and they will last you for years rather than just 1 or 2 seasons. So again, laminating film, great for a racing wing if you want speed and you want a lightweight build. But for strength and durability, you can't beat this glass sleeve tape and vinyl tape. So I hope that's answered your question, Nathan. Nick Reeves has asked details of the Lecky Wildthing 60. There is a Swedish guy who's converted a few of these Wildthing 60s to electric now. We will be producing an electric version of the Wildthing 60 at some point next year. What we're doing at the moment is looking into CNC laser cutting of the parts for the bulkhead and the ply parts, so that the motor mounting is easy and we can offer a fuselage for an electric version. So yeah, that is on the cards, but will be at some point next year once we've worked out all the finer details. James Alexander Fowler has said, I have one still to build. Well, you better get on with it, James, now you know how to do it. Okay, good. I think that's all of the questions now. Barry, you look green crackered. Yeah, I've been very, very busy over the last couple of months. Been in the shed till 11:30, 12 o'clock most nights, making kits and stuff. So yeah, it's taking its toll a little bit, but it's all good fun. All right, good. I think that's everybody's questions. We're gonna wrap up now. Tomorrow, as I said, we're gonna carry on with the build. The wings will already be taped, and we should be getting ready to set up the electronics and join everything together. So I will see you all tomorrow evening if you join us again, and thanks very much for tuning in. Bye bye.